Came home to find my husband gone and every mirror in the house covered with my affair texts. My wedding dress was shredded on the floor. On the bed, a note in his handwriting. Hope he was worth it. Then my phone buzzed, and his contact name popped up. I never imagined my life would take such a turn. My husband, Daniel, and I had built a comfortable life together in our modest home in Austin, Texas. We met during our college years at the University of Texas, and our bond grew stronger with each passing year. After graduation, we both secured stable jobs, Daniel as a software engineer and I as a marketing consultant. Our routines were predictable but comforting: morning coffees on the porch, weekend hikes in the hill country, and Sunday dinners with friends. We were the couple others admired, the ones who seemed to have it all figured out. But life has a way of unraveling even the most tightly knit fabrics. It started subtly. Daniel began working late more often, his phone became an extension of his hand, and our conversations grew terse. I attributed it to work stress, convincing myself that every relationship has its ebbs and flows. But the distance between us widened, and an unspoken tension settled in our home. One evening, after a particularly strained dinner, Daniel announced he had to return to the office to meet a project deadline. I nodded, offering a weak smile, and watched as he grabbed his laptop bag and left without another word. The house felt emptier than usual, the silence pressing against me. Seeking distraction, I decided to take a long bath. As I entered the bathroom, I noticed something odd. The mirror above the sink was covered with smudges, as if someone had wiped it hastily. Curious, I stepped closer and realized the smudges were, in fact, words written in bold strokes. My heart pounded as I read the messages: explicit texts, declarations of love, plans for secret rendezvous. All in my handwriting. But I hadn't written them. Confusion morphed into dread. I rushed to the bedroom, flipping on the light, and froze. My wedding dress lay on the floor, shredded into unrecognizable pieces. The delicate lace and satin, once symbols of our union, now lay in tatters. On the bed, a note in Daniel's unmistakable handwriting read, "Hope he was worth it." My knees buckled, and I sank onto the edge of the bed, the room spinning around me. Tears blurred my vision as I tried to make sense of it all. Daniel believed I had been unfaithful, but I hadn't. I had been loyal, devoted. Where was this coming from? As I sat there, my phone buzzed on the nightstand. I reached for it, my hands trembling. Daniel's contact name flashed on the screen. With a deep breath, I answered. "Daniel, please let me explain," I pleaded. His voice was cold, distant. "Explain what, Sarah? The messages? The lies?" "I saw them all. I don't know how those messages appeared, but I swear to you, I haven't been unfaithful. Please, come home so we can talk." There was a long pause before he spoke again. "I need time to think." The line went dead. I sat in the dimly lit room, the weight of the situation pressing down on me. How could I prove my innocence when the evidence against me was so damning? Who would want to sabotage our marriage in such a cruel manner? Determined to uncover the truth, I began retracing our recent interactions, searching for any clue that could explain this nightmare. Little did I know, the path ahead would challenge everything I believed about trust, love, and the people closest to me. The next morning, I woke to an empty house. Daniel hadn't returned, and his absence was a gaping hole in the fabric of our home. I decided to take action. I started by examining the messages on the mirror more closely. The handwriting resembled mine, but certain nuances were off. The slant of the letters, the way certain words were formed. Someone had gone to great lengths to mimic my writing. I took photographs of the mirror and the shredded dress, documenting everything. Then I checked our home for any signs of forced entry, but nothing seemed amiss. Whoever did this had access to our home. I reached out to our close friends, subtly inquiring if Daniel had confided in them. Most were unaware of our situation, but one friend, Lisa, mentioned that Daniel had been distant lately, often canceling plans and avoiding social gatherings. This was unlike him. Desperate for answers, I decided to check our home security system. We had installed cameras at the front and back entrances for safety. Reviewing the footage from the night before, I noticed something peculiar. Around 8 p.m., Daniel left the house, as I remembered. But shortly after, a figure approached the back door, using a key to enter. The person wore a hoodie, obscuring their face, but their posture and build seemed familiar. My mind raced. Who had access to our home besides us? Family? Friends? The realization hit me like a freight train. My younger sister, Rachel, had a spare key. She had stayed with us during a rough patch last year, and we never asked for the key back. But why would Rachel do this? I stared at the screen, frozen. My mind wanted to reject it. It had to be a mistake. But deep down, I already knew. Rachel, of all people, my own sister? She and I weren't close the way sisters are supposed to be. She was younger by 3 years, impulsive, emotional, and always chasing chaos like it was a prize. We'd fought a lot growing up. But still this? This was something else. I needed proof. The hoodie, the walk, even the slight limp. Rachel twisted her ankle last summer at Zilker Park. It all lined up. My throat went dry as I rewound the footage again and again, watching that shadowy figure slip inside the house I shared with my husband, the house I made a home. She was in there for 27 minutes. That's how long it took to destroy my life. And then, at 8:58 p.m., she slipped out the back door and was gone. I wanted to scream, throw something, maybe tear the rest of the wedding dress to shreds myself, if only to feel something real. Instead, I called her. No answer. I called again. And again. Then a text, can't talk. With friends. What's up? I stared at it so long my eyes started to burn. My hands were shaking as I typed back, you need to call me. Now. I know what you did. Nothing. I sat in that damn house for hours, too wired to sleep. I couldn't eat. I couldn't even cry anymore. Just empty. Cold. Like someone had reached into my chest and taken everything that made me human. By morning, I was no closer to the truth. Daniel still hadn't come back. My calls to him went straight to voicemail. My messages stayed unread. I didn't know if he'd left town, moved out, or was just hiding somewhere to punish me. But I knew if I didn't act fast, I might never get him back. And worse, I'd be framed for something I didn't do. So I drove. Straight to Rachel's apartment in East Austin. I pounded on her door until one of her neighbors opened theirs and gave me a dirty look. But I didn't care. Finally, the door swung open. And there she was. Hungover. Barefoot. Hair a mess. Her eyes squinted at me like I was the problem. What the hell? She muttered. You were in my house last night, I said. She blinked. Excuse me? You broke in, you wrote fake texts on the mirror to make it look like I cheated, and you destroyed my wedding dress. I have footage. I saw you. Rachel stepped back like I slapped her. Her expression twisted, surprise, then confusion, then a smirk. That smug, childish smirk she always wore when she thought she was smarter than me. You must be losing it, she said. Why the hell would I do that? I stepped inside. She didn't stop me. That's what I'm trying to figure out. Was it because Daniel and I didn't give you money for your stupid crypto thing? Or because you hate seeing people happy? She rolled her eyes. Jesus, you're dramatic. You have a key, Rachel. I had a key. Lost it months ago. Then how did someone with your exact build, your exact limp, and your exact hoodie get into my house with no signs of forced entry? She looked like she was going to say something smart again, but didn't. Instead, she stared at me, quiet for a few seconds. Then, she shrugged. So what if I did? Maybe it was a joke. You always were too serious. A joke. A joke? I'm going to the police, I said. She laughed. Laughed. Go ahead. What are you gonna say? My sister wrote mean stuff on my mirror? They'll laugh you right out of the station. She wasn't wrong. Not really. But the part that chilled me most was how calm she was. Like she'd done it before. Like this was nothing. I left. I didn't slam the door. I didn't scream. I just walked to my car, got in, and sat in silence. And then my phone buzzed again. Daniel. Not a call this time. A message. Don't come looking for me. We're done. It hit harder than any punch could have. I stared at the screen, not breathing, barely even blinking. Done? Like, done? We've been together 10 years. We built our life from nothing. And now he was throwing it away based on this? I texted him back, over and over. Pages of messages. Begging him to talk. Telling him I could explain. I even sent the footage of Rachel breaking in. He didn't respond. A day passed. Then 2. On the 3rd day, I got another message. Leave it alone. If you love me like you say you do, stop digging. What the hell did that mean? Why would he say that after I showed him proof? Unless he already knew? That thought cracked something inside me. What if he was in on it? What if he and Rachel had? No. That was too twisted. Even for them. But the thought wouldn't leave me alone. I started digging harder. Old messages. Social media likes. A weird trip Rachel took to see a friend in Dallas, the same weekend Daniel visited his cousin in Houston. Photos. Patterns. Anything. And then I found something. On Rachel's Instagram, buried in a story highlight from 4 months ago, there was a picture of her in a hotel lobby. The angle was weird, like she didn't want people to see who she was with, but in the mirror behind her, barely visible, was a man. Wearing Daniel's favorite flannel. The same one I bought him for our anniversary last year. My heart was in my throat. I zoomed in. Blurry. Grainy. But I knew that shirt. And I knew what this meant. I'd been looking at it all wrong. Rachel didn't just frame me out of spite. She did it to cover something. She and Daniel were having an affair. And now he was running from me, not because he hated me, but because he was ashamed. Or worse, scared of what I might do if I found out the truth. So I did what I had to do. I sent Rachel a message. I know. I saw the photo. You're not as slick as you think. 10 minutes later, she called. Okay, listen, she said. It wasn't supposed to be like this. Like what? You weren't supposed to get hurt. I'm your sister, Rachel. You think I don't know that? Her voice cracked. You think I don't feel sick every time I think about it? But he said you stopped loving him. He said you didn't touch him anymore. He said you stop. I closed my eyes, breathing hard. You slept with him. You trashed my life. Don't you dare try to make me feel guilty. She was quiet. I didn't mean for it to go so far, she said. Did he? What? Did he mean for it to go so far? Did he plan this? Did he tell you to frame me? She hesitated. I don't know. I hung up. And then, for the first time in days, I cried. Really cried. I wasn't just losing a husband. I was losing a sister. And I still didn't know how far they'd go to keep the truth buried. And worst of all, I wasn't sure what I'd do next. Because something inside me was waking up. And it was angry. I didn't leave the house for the next 2 days. I couldn't. Every time I got up, the walls felt like they were pressing in on me. The mirrors were still covered, the dress still in shreds, the notes still on the bed. I hadn't touched anything. It was like a crime scene. My own life, destroyed, and I was the only witness left behind. I didn't eat much. I barely slept. I just thought about Daniel, about Rachel, about how it all came apart. I replayed every interaction over the past year, every time Daniel looked tired, distant, distracted. Every time Rachel made some offhand comment about how no man stays loyal forever. I brushed it off back then. Now it all felt like breadcrumbs I should have followed. But there was still one thing I couldn't figure out. Why the hell did Daniel say, leave it alone? If you love me like you say you do, stop digging? He wasn't just telling me to move on. That wasn't just guilt or regret. That was something else. A warning, maybe even a threat. And then it hit me. There was something else going on. I opened my laptop, logged into our shared bank account, and that's when I saw it. $18,000. Gone. Moved 2 days before he left. To an account I didn't recognize. I checked again, thinking it might be a transfer I forgot about. But I hadn't authorized anything like that. And Daniel never mentioned it. I searched the routing number and found it linked to a small credit union in Galveston. That's not where his cousin lived. That's not where anyone we knew lived. My chest tightened. Where was he? And what the hell was he doing with that money? I called the credit union. Tried to play it cool. Said I was just checking on a transfer. The woman on the line told me the account wasn't under my name and she couldn't give me any details. So I lied. I'm his wife. There's a fraud situation. I need to know who accessed this. She paused. Said she couldn't help. I pushed harder. Told her I'd call the police, the FBI, anyone. Eventually, she gave me a breadcrumb. I'm not supposed to say this, ma'am, but the account holder recently updated the address on file to a motel in Galveston. That's all I can tell you. That was all I needed. I packed a bag, got in my car, and drove 5 hours straight to Galveston. I didn't call Rachel. I didn't tell anyone. I just drove. When I got to the motel, an old, faded place off Seawall Boulevard, I sat in the parking lot for almost an hour. I didn't know what I'd say if I saw him. I didn't know what I'd do. Eventually, I went inside. Asked for Daniel by name. The clerk gave me a weird look, then nodded slowly. Room 207. He's checked in under a fake name, but yeah, he's there. That was all the confirmation I needed. I walked up the stairs, every step feeling heavier than the last. When I knocked, I didn't even know what I wanted anymore. Closure? Revenge? Just to see his face? But the door didn't open. Instead, I heard movement. Whispering. Then, footsteps. And a voice I didn't expect. Rachel. Shit, she said behind the door. It's her. I stepped back like I'd been hit. She was with him? Now? Still? The door cracked open an inch. Daniel's face appeared. Pale. Hollow-eyed. Unshaven. Sarah, he said. His voice was so calm it made me want to scream. Go home. Are you serious? I whispered. You're here. With her. Still? It's not what you think, Rachel said, her voice muffled behind him. Then what is it? I shouted. Daniel stepped out, closing the door behind him. You need to stop. I told you to stop. I stared at him, shaking. Why, Daniel? Why did you do this? Why her? He rubbed his face. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. That's not an answer. I was going to tell you, he said. But then you started digging. And I realized we were past saving. You didn't even try. I screamed. You and Rachel destroyed everything. Why? For what? He looked down. Because she knew. Knew what? He hesitated. And then everything changed. She knew about the accident, he said quietly. I blinked. What accident? He looked like he aged 10 years in 5 seconds. You remember that night I said I hit a deer on the way back from the lake? 3 months ago. I nodded slowly. Yeah, there was no deer. He swallowed. I hit someone. My knees nearly gave out. What? What are you talking about? Some guy. He was drunk. Walking along the shoulder. I didn't see him. It was late. I panicked. I called Rachel. I didn't want to go to jail. She helped me cover it up. I couldn't speak. Rachel said she'd keep it quiet, he continued, but then she started changing. She got possessive. Controlling. She said if I didn't leave you, she'd go to the police. Said she had pictures. Proof. And then when I hesitated, she said she'd make it look like you cheated. Said it would make things easier. My mouth was dry. My hands were numb. You let her do that, I whispered. You let her rip our life apart. I didn't know she'd take it that far, he said. But I couldn't stop her. And you still ran off with her? I screamed. Even after everything? I didn't know where else to go, he said quietly. She's all I have now. I looked at him, really looked. And I saw it, the brokenness, the cowardice, the man I used to love, now hollowed out and empty. I turned and walked away. Not because I forgave him, but because I needed to survive. I got in my car and drove back to Austin. The whole way, my mind raced with questions I couldn't shake. Who was the man Daniel hit? Did he die? And did Rachel really help him cover it up, or was she the one pulling the strings all along? I didn't have the answers yet, but I knew this wasn't over. Not even close. When I got back to Austin, it was like waking up from a coma and realizing your life had gone up in smoke. I stood in the doorway of my home, the place Daniel and I once danced barefoot in the kitchen, and felt nothing but hollow space around me. There was no scent of his cologne, no keys on the hook, no jacket draped over the chair. Just silence and the mirror, still smeared with the lies Rachel had written. I sat on the floor in the hallway, phone in hand, staring at the only number I wanted to call but couldn't. Not Daniel's. Not Rachel's. The man Daniel hit. Somewhere out there, someone's life was shattered, and I was just now learning I'd been living next to a monster. But the worst part wasn't even the accident. It was the fact that he let Rachel manipulate it, twist it into a weapon against me. He let her destroy me to protect his secret. I couldn't sit with it. So I did something reckless. I went to the police. I didn't know the full story. I didn't know the name of the man Daniel hit. But I told them everything I did know. The night, the car, the lie about the deer, the suspicious withdrawal, the motel. I gave them the name of the hotel clerk who confirmed Daniel was hiding under a fake name. They listened. They took notes. Asked questions. And then they told me something that changed everything. We've had a cold case from that same night. Hit and run. No ID on the victim. He was in critical condition but survived. Barely. He's in a long-term care facility now. No family claimed him. Still hasn't spoken. Can't. My throat closed. What's his name? They didn't know. Still listed as John Doe. They asked me to come back in for a formal statement. I said I would. That night, I didn't sleep. Instead, I drove back to Rachel's. This time, I wasn't asking. I knocked once, then let myself in with the same key she swore she lost. The living room was a mess. Empty wine bottles. Clothes on the floor. The usual disaster. She was sitting on the couch in Daniel's shirt, legs pulled up, scrolling on her phone like she hadn't helped cover up a crime and emotionally gutted her sister for fun. When she saw me, she didn't flinch. "You shouldn't be here," she said. "You ruined my life," I said, closing the door behind me. She smirked. "You did that to yourself." "No. You framed me for cheating. You took everything I loved and set it on fire." "I protected him," she snapped. "I was the one who showed up when he called. Not you." I stared at her. "You mean when he called you after hitting a man with his car and running away?" She looked away. "I went to the police," I said. She flinched. "I told them everything. About the accident. About you. About how you helped him hide it." "You bitch," she hissed, standing up fast. "You just signed his death warrant." "No," I said calmly. "He did that when he left a man to die." The door behind me opened. Daniel. He looked between us like he'd walked into a fire he knew he started, but hoped would have burned out by now. "Sarah," he said, voice tired. "Don't do this." "I already did. You don't understand what you've done." "No," I cut in. "You don't understand. You don't get to ruin me, use me, and still expect silence." Rachel crossed the room, her voice rising. "We did this to survive. You think I wanted any of this? You wanted him, Rachel. You didn't care what you had to destroy to get him. You were boring," she screamed. "You were sleepwalking through your marriage, and I was just the wake-up call." I stared at her like I didn't even know her anymore. Daniel stepped between us, arms raised. "Stop. Just stop. This is all spiraling." "Too late for that," I said. And then Rachel snapped. "Fine. You want the truth?" I took those screenshots. I copied your texts, mixed them with fake ones. I made it look real. You're right. I framed you. But I did it because you deserved to know how it felt to be second. You always made me feel like a screw-up, like you were better than me. This time, I won. It was so quiet after she said that. Daniel looked at her like she'd grown horns. And maybe she had. I didn't say a word. I just turned to leave. But Daniel followed me out. On the steps, he said, "I never wanted this. Any of this. But you didn't stop it," I said. "That's the part that matters." He looked like he might cry. For himself, probably. "She's not who I thought she was," he said. "Neither are you." "Do you hate me?" he asked. I didn't answer. He waited. "I don't know what I feel," I said finally. "But I do know you're not my husband anymore. That man, he's gone." He nodded, like he expected it. I drove away. This time, I didn't look back. In the weeks that followed, the investigation moved fast. Daniel was arrested for the hit and run. Rachel was charged with obstruction and falsifying evidence. The media got hold of the story. Austin woman helps lover cover up accident, frames sister for affair. I didn't watch the news. Friends called. Some in shock. Some apologizing for ever doubting me. A few even cried. I appreciated it, but I didn't need their pity. The betrayal had changed me. I wasn't the same woman who smiled through morning coffees and Sunday hikes. I was sharper now. More awake. The man Daniel hit eventually passed away in hospice. I went to his memorial. I didn't know his name, but I owed him something. Maybe because he was the one who forced the truth into the light. Maybe because if he hadn't survived for as long as he did, I never would have known the truth. As for Rachel, I haven't spoken to her since that night. She sent a letter from jail. I didn't read it. I didn't need any more of her lies. And Daniel? I don't even think about him anymore. Not the way I used to. Sometimes at night, I still wake up sweating. My mind loops back to that text. Hope he was worth it. The irony is, there was no he. The real betrayal wasn't imaginary. It was lying in bed next to me for years. In the end, I didn't get closure the way I wanted. But I got clarity. And sometimes, that's enough to start over. I'm not sure if I'll ever love again. But I know this, I'll never let someone else write my story for me again. Not with their lies. Not with their shame. Not with their cowardice. From now on, I hold the pen. And this time, I'm writing for me.